Fellow Ron Paul supporters, I'd like to talk about the next phase of the Ron Paul revolution, the phase that will come after Super Duper Tuesday. And as we speak, we have seen that we reached the goal of February 1st to raise $5 million by Super Duper Tuesday. That tells me that this movement is still alive, very much so, and well. And we can take this far. Now what's going to happen on Super Duper Tuesday is that we're going to win some delegates in some states, but we're not going to sweep the floor. Of course we're not. The thing to remember is that we're in this game. We're not going to win on Super Duper Tuesday. Not even a single state. But in some states, we'll have enough votes to get delegates, and that's what's important. The important thing is that we're going to be in Minneapolis on September 1st. And it doesn't really matter that much if we are there with a dozen delegates or 24 delegates or 50, or we will be a small minority regardless. So we'll just have to work with that. We'll work with what we have. Now, the thing to remember is that it's still not September 1st. A lot is going to happen until that. And the Ron Paul revolution must now shift into a different modus operandi. We will have to make the most out of what we got. And what we got is a number of delegates to the convention in September. We're going to raise some issues that none of the other candidates will have answers to. And that is the financial crisis that's coming up now and the fact that we're losing in Iraq. And we have the answers to those two things. The financial disaster is going to be solved by a sound monetary policy and a sound fiscal policy by the government. The second, the war in Iraq, is just to realize that we've lost and pull out. The other candidates are not going to have answers to that. So this is where we can really rise and shine. And we have to do that before September 1st in a big way, in a huge way. And we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the other delegates will even pull out. Maybe we don't know what kind of scandals and skeletons are out there. Things might happen. We might even be surprised ourselves of some things will happen. It's impossible to say now what it is, but things might very well happen. My dream is that the Ron Paul revolution and the movement will now turn into a different phase of becoming a movement not about civil rights as in the 60s and the 70s, but about constitutional rights, a constitutional movement. And I want us to march on Washington, D.C. I want to see all the Ron Paul supporters all over the United States march on D.C. on July 4th and fill the mall like we did in the 60s and the 70s. And it's not a civil rights, it's a constitutional rights movement. And it's just as important, if not more important, than what the generation that went before us did in the 60s and 70s. So I want us to fill them all. I want you to get that vision. I want you to have that vision in your mind, that you're there in Washington, D.C., you're in the mall, and it's just filled with Ron Paul supporters, with banners screaming and shouting. And Ron Paul is there himself giving a speech right there on the staircase in front of the whole mall filled with Ron Paul supporters, demanding change, demanding that we get back the country, to get back the constitutional rights. I want you to get that vision now, and we'll continue working throughout the spring and make this happen. It will take a lot to make it happen, but it can happen, and it can arise this demand in people much wider than what we've reached already. Then I want us to march on Minneapolis at the Republican convention on September 1st. I want us to fill that city with Ron Paul supporters and demand change. They cannot ignore us if we fill the city. Those two things. March on DC and march on Minneapolis. And I want everyone to get ready. I want Ron Paul supporters in DC and Minneapolis to get ready. Rent tents, makeshift tents in your garden. Take in people, get friends for life. Organize this to make it happen. We'll use the internet. We'll use all the sites that we have. And we're going to demand at the convention in September that they elect Ron Paul regardless. I don't care if the other ones have more delegates, and I don't care. There will be scandals, there will be things happening, there will be a financial crisis that nobody has answers to. We'll demand Ron Paul regardless. We can do that. And if they don't elect him, I hope that Ron Paul will run independently or for the Libertarian Party. And I believe that will happen. So this revolution will go on throughout the year, through November, through the election. And maybe, we don't know that, but let's work to get him elected president regardless. After that, if he's not elected, then we'll have to change strategy completely. It will be the hardcore, the really dedicated Ron Paul supporters that will go on. And what we've done now with the presidential election is to do a top-down approach, to get a true constitutionalist at the top and work our way down. If that doesn't happen, this becomes a fight, a long-term fight for many years. I've been in this for 20 years already. But it then becomes a long-term fight from the bottom up. We have to fill every precinct in the United States with Ron Paul people and work our way bottom up. And that will take another 20 years maybe, or someone will arise that is electable. And I hope you're with me all the way, regardless. This is going to be an exciting Ron Paul year, 2008. And if he's elected the president, then, you know, it's just amazing. We'll take back the country. If not, we'll keep on fighting for the next years to come, regardless. The Ron Paul revolution is here to stay.